In 2006, a crime in Perth, Australia, horrified the entire nation and became one of the most shocking criminal cases in the country's history. The brutality of the act left deep psychological scars on the community and shook public confidence to its core. Law enforcement officials described it as the most disturbing murder the city had ever witnessed. An 8-year-old girl was brutally murdered, mere steps from where her family was searching for her. The extreme violence of the crime exposed serious shortcomings within the justice system, revealing how dangerously unprepared it could be when dealing with offenders capable of such severe harm. The Rodriguez Urrutia family lived in Canning Vale, a Perth suburb. They had 4 children: Gabriel, 14, Inez, 11, Sophia, 8, and Isabel, 3. They worked hard to raise them, always making time for meaningful conversations and maintaining a warm, loving home. Josephine, the mother, was known for her gentle and caring nature. She devoted herself to creating a nurturing environment for her family, managing a toddler, 2 school-aged children, and a teenager, all with unique needs, was a demanding responsibility. The father, Gabriel, a businessman, often traveled to Hong Kong for long periods, which meant frequent absences from home. Sophia attended a local Catholic primary school. She happily helped her mother with chores and adored taking care of her little sister. Her life was full of joy, curiosity. She loved singing, dancing, and genuinely believed in miracles. Sophia's maternal uncle often looked after the children and frequently organized outings for them. June 26, 2006, fell on a weekend, and the children were excited about a trip to the mall. The day began as usual. After school, their uncle met the children and took them to the local shopping center, Livingston Marketplace. It was a modest suburban mall, but it offered everything local families needed. Unlike crowded city centers with constant foot traffic, this mall was calm and quiet, making it an ideal place for a relaxed family outing. 3 children accompanied their uncle that day: 14-year-old Gabriel, the oldest, 11-year-old Ines, and 8-year-old Sophia. During the trip, Sophia excitedly shared wonderful news. She had been chosen to perform a traditional Indonesian dance at school. Her face lit up as she spoke. Her siblings and uncle praised her, sharing in her excitement. Pride. While they were at the mall, Sophia said she needed to use the restroom. Confident and familiar with the mall's layout, she often handled such tasks independently. Her uncle allowed her to go alone while the others unpacked and paid for their groceries. The restroom was just down a long corridor. He watched her until she disappeared behind the door. After completing their purchase, the family walked to the restrooms to wait for her. Minutes passed, but Sophia didn't return. Growing uneasy, the uncle approached the women's restroom and called out her name. There was no response. Since he couldn't enter, he asked the older children to check. They knocked repeatedly, but no one answered. They checked the men's restroom too, thinking she might have gone in by mistake. But it was empty. Still searching, they tried the nearby disabled restroom. From inside, they heard movement, and when they knocked, a rough male voice snapped. Occupied, startled and confused, the children stepped back, thinking Sophia must have exited somewhere else. The group split up to search the mall. The uncle stayed in the hallway in case she returned, while the others looked around the shops and food court. They quickly alerted mall security, who joined the search. After 10 anxious minutes with no sign of Sophia, Gabriel, overwhelmed with fear and unable to wait any longer, returned to the restroom area. He decided to call out to her again, hoping she simply hadn't heard them earlier. As the teenager approached the disabled restroom, the door suddenly swung open. A clumsy, overweight man in his early 20s stepped out. Their eyes met. Gabriel instantly sensed something was very wrong. The man looked pale, confused, and deeply unsettled. Before Gabriel could react, the man hurried past him and disappeared down the corridor. Then Gabriel's attention shifted. Something in the wastebasket caught his eye. Inside was Sophia's school uniform, heart pounding. He rushed closer. On the floor of the restroom lay Sophia's lifeless, unclothed body. In that horrifying moment, the truth hit him with unbearable force. The man who had just fled the restroom was her killer. Gabriel fell to his knees, desperately hoping she might still be alive, but she showed no signs of movement. Overwhelmed with horror, he began screaming for help. His cries echoed through the corridor. Within moments, their uncle, Ines, and several bystanders rushed into the restroom, horrified by what they found. Police and mall security were called immediately. The building was locked down to prevent the perpetrator from escaping further. Paramedics arrived, but their efforts were futile. Sophia had died before help could reach her. Forensic investigators sealed off the restroom as a crime scene and began collecting evidence. Gabriel, still in shock but determined to help, provided a clear and detailed description of the suspect he had seen. Police began combing the mall, searching for the young man who had emerged from the handicapped restroom. However, no one matching the perpetrator's description was found during the initial search. Law enforcement concluded that the perpetrator had managed to escape the building. The shocking news of the brutal crime stirred up the public. It was hard to believe that in what was considered a safe and peaceful area, a child could be harmed simply by going to the toilet. This murder was later recognized as the most brutal in Western Australian history. So horrific was the nature of the crime and the injuries inflicted on Sophia. Unfortunately, the CCTV system in that very hallway was out of order on the day of the tragedy. Cameras the police were relying on for crucial evidence. Detectives had only a verbal description of the suspect based on a statement from the deceased brother. This was clearly insufficient for a rapid search. The scale of the crime was staggering. According to forensic experts, Sophia died from strangulation. The attacker used monstrous force. Her larynx was completely shattered. Multiple fractures and dislocations were found on her body. Severe injuries, including tissue lacerations consistent with abuse, were also documented. According to the forensic examination, the attack lasted approximately 5 minutes. In this short period of time, the attacker managed to inflict horrific injuries on the child. Even investigators with years of experience, accustomed to the most serious crimes, described this case as the most horrific they had ever encountered. Apparently, Sophia had no intention of entering the accessible restroom. She knew where the regular women's restroom was and always used it. She was likely grabbed immediately after approaching the door and forced inside. The perpetrator was presumably already inside, waiting for a victim, and Sophia became a random target. She was grabbed in an instant. The girl didn't even have time to utter a sound. The perpetrator immediately began strangling her. 8-year-old Sophia had no way to resist the grown man, no chance to call for help. This was especially tragic because her loved ones were nearby, searching for her just meters from the crime scene. The investigative team immediately launched a search, compiled a list of all known abusers living in the area, and conducted a series of interviews with mall employees, showing them a composite sketch of the suspect. The situation demanded immediate action. Panic was growing in the city. The brutal attack on the child shocked residents. People became afraid to go outside. During questioning, several shopping center employees identified the portrait as 21-year-old Dante Wyndham Arthurs. Witnesses described him as a plump young man with a consistently pale complexion. He worked as a fruit and vegetable bagger at one of the mall's stores, often working night shifts. It turned out that Dante had indeed been at work on the day of the crime, but subsequently disappeared without a trace. This all seemed particularly suspicious. The police immediately became interested in Dante and requested information about his criminal history. It turned out that 3 years before this crime, he had already come to the attention of law enforcement for the abuse of another 8-year-old girl. Investigators were unable to gather sufficient evidence, and he was released. After a detailed review of the circumstances of that case, current detectives reached a clear conclusion. Their predecessors had sufficient reason to arrest and charge him, but committed significant errors. Irrefutable evidence pointing to Dante's guilt was discovered, specifically traces of the victim's blood on his shorts. However, this evidence was never submitted for forensic analysis. Furthermore, The victim herself was never examined by a medical professional. These key procedures were simply not carried out. As a result, the perpetrator escaped prosecution, which likely reinforced his sense of impunity. The day after the tragedy, around 5:00 a.m., the investigative team, now in possession of the suspect's exact address, arrived at Dante Wyndham Arthur's home. He lived with his parents in a residential area, just a 5-minute walk from the shopping center where the crime was committed. Law enforcement conducted a series of investigative operations, questioned Dante himself, and thoroughly searched the residence. During the search, they discovered a duffel bag containing alarming contents, suggesting preparation for a crime. Latex gloves to conceal fingerprints, handcuffs to restrain the victim, strong rope as additional restraint, a knife, and a collection of photographs of underage girls. The ages of the girls depicted varied considerably. The oldest was 15. The others were significantly younger. Several of the photographs contained handwritten notes with personal information, first names, last names, ages, and full home addresses. Some of the notes contained detailed directions for getting to each girl's residence using the shortest route by public transportation. These findings indicated targeted surveillance of minors and meticulous preparation for potential attacks. Notably, Sophia was not among the photographs discovered. Her death was likely the result of a spontaneous attack, not a premeditated crime. A few hours after the search, Dante Wyndham Arthurs was formally arrested and charged with first-degree murder, abuse, and forcible confinement. Dante Wyndham Arthurs was born on August 8, 1984, in Western Australia. His family later moved to the UK, where they lived for 8 years before returning to Australia. As a teenager, Dante was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a disorder characterized by difficulties in social interaction and a tendency toward repetitive, obsessive behavior. During interrogation, he displayed extremely ambivalent reactions. He didn't categorically deny his involvement in the crime, but he also didn't fully admit guilt, displaying a striking indifference to what had happened. His testimony was detached. He described the events as if he were observing them from the outside. Rather than being a direct participant, Dante was unable to recount the sequence of actions in detail, could not explain the motive for the attack, and could not clearly indicate whether the abuse occurred before or after the murder. This last point was of fundamental legal significance because, in Western Australia, the law interprets such situations differently. Abuse assault committed after the victim's death is not formally classified as a crime. There's no relevant article, meaning there's no criminal liability in this case. In conversations with his lawyer, Dante gave a somewhat contradictory explanation. He claimed that memories of the murder floated through his mind like scenes from someone else's film. At the same time, he insisted that he felt as if someone else had committed the crime. Dante admitted to intent to abuse, but categorically denied the original intent to kill. Sophia's family was shocked by the blatant negligence of law enforcement. They accused the police of allowing a dangerous criminal to remain at large, asserting that, as early as 2003, investigators had ignored a number of key pieces of evidence that clearly pointed to Dante's dangerousness after he abused another girl. Had the investigation been properly conducted and the suspect brought to justice, the tragedy could have been prevented. Sophia would not have encountered him in the restroom and would have survived. The public fully supported the family's outrage, blaming the police. It turned out that Dante wasn't even listed on the state's predatory offender registry. Moreover, the crime against Sophia wasn't even the second in Dante Wyndham Arthur's criminal history. Back in 2001, while on vacation with his family abroad, he was arrested on charges of abusing a young woman. However, due to insufficient evidence, he was released, and the crime went unpunished. Australian police never received any information about the case. Subsequently, another horrific crime against a child sparked public debate: the murder of 2-year-old James Patrick Bulger. This case received widespread attention and became a symbol of the extreme cruelty of which people are capable. On February 12, 1993, in Liverpool, UK, James's mother briefly left her son at a butcher shop in a shopping center. She intended to pick up a ready-made order, but a mix-up with the orders delayed her arrival. When she went outside, the child was no longer there. In a panic, she rushed to search for him and immediately contacted the police. The boy's body was discovered 2 days later. Although a passing train had dismembered the body, it was clear this was no accident, but murder. The death had occurred much earlier. A forensic examination revealed 42 injuries on the child's body, including 10 skull fractures. Due to the multiple and severe injuries, determining the exact cause of death was difficult. It was discovered that James Patrick Bulger had been spotted near the butcher's shop by two 10-year-old boys, John Venables and Robert Thompson. They had skipped school that day and were wandering aimlessly around the shopping center, causing several minor incidents. Zaying James. They decided to have some fun with him. The perpetrators took the child away and brutally beat him with a 20-pound iron bar. They kicked and stomped on him, threw bricks and stones at him, splashed paint on his face. When the juvenile attackers realized James was dead, they dragged his body to the train tracks, intending to fake an accident and make it appear that the child had died accidentally under the wheels of a train. This crime sparked widespread public outcry and prompted reflection on the problems of juvenile delinquency and measures to prevent such tragedies. The murder of James Patrick Bulger was quickly solved thanks to the shopping center's CCTV system. The cameras clearly captured the moment when the two older boys led little James away. Juvenile offenders John Venables and Robert Thompson were quickly apprehended. The investigation revealed that this was not their first such incident. They had previously attempted to abduct another child at the same shopping center. The child briefly wandered away from his mother. The boys attempted to take him. Fortunately, the woman quickly realized what was happening and rescued the child from a terrible fate. From the moment the trio left the mall, 38 witnesses helped trace their route. Many saw the two older boys forcibly dragging the toddler. However, only 2 passers-by showed any concern. The perpetrators, however, managed to convincingly lie that James was the younger brother of one of them, telling others that they were taking him to the police station. None of the witnesses took any action to verify these claims or stop the suspicious group. A forensic examination revealed a disturbing fact: the boy's body was missing clothing and underwear. This gave rise to speculation that the crime might have been abuse-motivated. However, due to the condition of the body, it was impossible to determine whether abuse assault had occurred. The accused themselves categorically denied any such actions, but were unable to clearly explain why they had removed the child's clothes. Their testimony remained contradictory and unconvincing throughout the investigation. John Venables and Robert Thompson were sentenced to indefinite detention, meaning imprisonment until a parole board deemed them no longer a threat to society. The initial minimum sentence was set at 10 years. In July 1994, under intense public pressure, the minimum sentence was increased to 15 years. In 1997, this decision was overturned, reinstating the original 10-year minimum. Ultimately, the teenagers spent only 8 years in prison and were released in June 2001. During their sentences, both juvenile offenders earned high school diplomas. They were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. In particular, John Venables suffered regular nightmares in which James Patrick Bulger appeared to him. A key condition of their release was the provision of new identities, guaranteeing the teenagers complete anonymity. Authorities imposed a strict ban on the publication of information revealing their new identities or the dissemination of photographs that could identify them. These measures were taken for 2 reasons. First, the state sought to give the young men a chance at rehabilitation in a normal life. Second, there was a real threat of physical violence. The public, shocked by the brutality of the crime, could have shown extreme aggression and resorted to violence. The sentence handed down to the perpetrators and the subsequent guarantee of their anonymity sparked widespread public outrage. People demanded the names and whereabouts of the former convicts be revealed. They wanted to know the location of the men involved in such a brutal crime so they could protect themselves and their children. Most categorically doubted their ability to be rehabilitated, and, as it turned out, their fears were not unfounded. On March 2, 2010, John Venables was back behind bars. He was charged with possessing and distributing material containing abuse images of children. The court sentenced him to 2 years in prison. After serving his sentence, he was released. In February 2018, the same thing happened. Venables appeared in court again on the same charge. This time, he was sentenced to 40 months in prison. During the trial, information emerged that John Venables could be given a new name and undergo plastic surgery at the state's expense to further conceal his identity. These plans met with strong opposition from James Patrick Bulger's parents, who opposed any measures that would erase the criminal's past. In July 2019, British authorities seriously considered resettling John Venables to one of the following countries: Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. The reason for this decision was the rapidly rising cost of ensuring his anonymity in the UK. Protecting the former convict's identity was becoming increasingly resource-intensive and was encountering increasing resistance from local residents. Very little is known about Robert Thompson after his release from prison. Officially, he was strictly forbidden from contacting his former accomplice, John Venables, and was relocated to an undisclosed location under the Identity Protection Program. It was presumed he was moved to a country such as Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. Thompson's subsequent fate remains a mystery. It is unclear whether he truly managed to reform and begin a law-abiding life, or whether, like Venables, he relapsed into crime. Following the murder of Sofia Urrutia in 2006, rumors circulated within the community suggesting that Dante Wyndham Arthurs might be Robert Thompson or John Venables, having been helped to change his identity and relocate. Proponents of this theory cited a number of coincidences. Dante Wyndham Arthurs had spent 8 years in the UK, geographically aligning with the period when James Patrick Bulger was murdered in 1993. The scenarios share similarities: children meeting in a shopping mall, and suspected abuse motives. Additionally, both cases involve similar ages and appearances between the perpetrators. Dante's age matched that of Robert and John. They also shared similar physical features. Police categorically rejected the theory that the three resembled each other. Detectives emphasized that there was no documentary evidence linking the cases. Furthermore, the identity change procedure does not completely erase the past. However, the public remains skeptical. Many still believe there is a connection, arguing that the similarities in circumstances are too striking to be coincidental, that the authorities' official denials may be motivated by the need to maintain the confidentiality of the Witness Protection Program. A year after Sofia's murder, Dante Wyndham Arthurs' trial took place. At the hearing, he pleaded not guilty to all charges. This led to significant changes in the legal classification of the crime. Premeditated murder was reclassified as simple murder, a lesser charge that carried a more lenient sentence. The abuse charge was dropped from the indictment entirely after experts were unable to reliably establish that the acts occurred before the victim's death. A significant problem in the investigation was the lack of properly executed interrogation reports. None of the conversations with the suspect were properly recorded, depriving the prosecution of the ability to rely on confessions and making it impossible to use these materials as compelling evidence in court. This situation exposed systemic shortcomings in the work of Western Australian law enforcement agencies, raising questions about the effectiveness of their evidence-gathering procedures. Following public pressure, the court sentenced Dante Wyndham Arthurs to life imprisonment with parole eligibility after 13 years, plus an additional 2 years for forcibly restraining the victim. However, due to the reduction of the initial charges, the actual time before possible parole was significantly reduced. This decision sparked debate about the fairness of the sentence and the ability of the judicial system to adequately respond to such a serious crime. According to the regulations in effect at the time of his sentencing, Dante Wyndham Arthurs was eligible for parole as early as 2019. From that date forward, his case would be reviewed every 3 years, giving him a chance to receive a pardon. This prospect sparked widespread outrage. Local residents initiated a petition drive with 2 key demands: to exclude the possibility of Dante's release and to impose a harsher sentence. This petition garnered over 150,000 signatures and attracted the attention of legislators, sparking a debate about reforming the criminal code. In 2022, another review of the case took place. The court ruled that Dante Wyndham Arthurs should remain in custody and not be considered for parole until 2025. In 2025, his petition was denied. Sophia's family and the general public continue to insist that the criminal spend his entire life in prison due to his perceived danger to society.